Hi, I'm Sherry Winston, and welcome to the Writer's Book Nook. Today, I'm at my desk rather than in my nook, but that's okay. This is a special edition that I'm going to call Wayback Wednesday, and in it, I am going to review a long running series that I've been a fan of since the beginning. And that series is the Bones series. Now, I think I recently spoke of this series when I reviewed one of the books. Today, I'm going to go through and talk about several that have stood out to me over the years. Now, the first book series is by Kathy Reichs. You may recognize the name from the Bones series on television. And I'm sure, as I said before, if that is your familiarity point with the series, then you needn't worry that there's crossover because there isn't. The Tempe on TV is socially awkward to the point of being seeming neurodivergent, whereas in the book series, that is not the case. She can be very blunt and very brusque in the book, but she is not as socially awkward as the TV version. So I've enjoyed this series of books for years. The series began in 1999, and I do believe I've been reading them off and on ever since then. It has now reached 24 books. I've not read all 24, but close. I've read close. So we'll kick it off with the first book, which is called Déjà Dead. And in this series, in this book, Tempe has just left behind a shaky marriage in North Carolina. Oh, by the way, Temperance Brennan is a forensic anthropologist, which means she investigates or she examines the physical remains, the bones, the viscera, that sort of thing that's been left behind that are beyond being investigated through normal medical examiner means. So when they've got bones that appear too old or just unidentifiable, they call Tempe. And in the early books, especially, she split her time between working in Quebec and in North Carolina, which I always found to be interesting. I learned a lot about Quebec and Quebecois. At least I learned what her books taught, and I found it fascinating. So in this book, she's just recently broken up with her husband Pete, and she has had to work has often preempted her weekend plans to explore Quebec because she's new going there. When a female corpse is discovered meticulously dismembered and stashed in trash bags, Tempe detects an alarming pattern, and it plunges her into this deep mystery about who is dismembering these women and what does it mean. And it also puts her and a close friend and her daughter in peril. So I'm not going to lie and say I remember every detail of this book from 1999 because, child, I don't. But I do remember enjoying it as it was my intro to the series, and I it catapulted me to want to read more. Now, the second book, Death du Jour, I actually do remember better, and it deals with Tempe being stuck in UNCC in Charleston, South Carolina, where she's stuck teaching an archaeology course. And while they are studying ancient bones, they come across some recent bones. I don't know what the deal is with my voice, so please forgive me. Um, so the skeleton leads her to a free street clinic, to a shady televangelist who oversees the clinic, to an equally shady doctor. Um, and it forces her to suspect a variety of people, including the staff at the clinic. As usual, Tempe's personal life is as complex as her professional one. She's juggling her flirt buddy from Montreal, that is Ryan, with an old flame who is investigating the disappearance of some young women, Detective Galliano. And as usual, we get a very in depth, behind the scenes look at what it takes to investigate Old Bones and how she methodically follows the trail. That's the one thing about these books that I really like and that I really appreciate is the methodology. You know, these are not fast paced thrillers, they just aren't. They are one foot in front of the other, investigations that suffer setbacks, that build on the character, that combine these different factors in order to build the story. And I'm here for it. I appreciate that. So that's Death du Jour. Now, this one is one that really got to me, and I do remember it. It's book 4 called Fatal Voyage, and it's about a terrible plane crash. And Tempe is on the team in North Carolina that is called to help investigate these crashes, because often with a crash like this, all you're left with are body parts, and you've got to piece them together and do DNA and try to give the families, as well as the state board, as much information as possible about who was on the plane and how they died. It is also complicated by the fact that she initially wonders whether or not her daughter's collegiate soccer team is among the dead. So, as you can imagine, that makes her frantic all unto itself. So, she's working with the FBI, the NTSB, and then Ryan from Montreal is there for his own investigative purposes, more so than personal. And she's not quite sure what they are. However, there was a criminal on board, a prisoner, I should say, who was being transported, and he was from Quebec. So, is that why Ryan was there? You don't know, but they're struggling to understand if the plane was targeted, if it was mechanical, if a particular person was targeted. um, this story was a little bit more emotional. You got really, you just had more of that emotional tug, because Tempe was worried about her daughter. And a thread throughout these books is her daughter appears time and again. And I'm not always a fan of her daughter. Sometimes I find her daughter to be whiny and bratty, even though she starts out, I think, college age, and now she's an adult in the later books. But you know, Tempe is very indulgent of the young lady, and I just don't know why my throat is so dry. So she is determined to work with the government to find out what brought down this plane. Now, in 206 Bones, it's different than the other books, and it's one again that I specifically remember because it opens with Temperance trapped and bound in a tight space, like maybe a makeshift coffin, and the place is cold and dank, and she's struggling to regain consciousness. It's a really, really um, claustrophobic feeling. Reichs does an excellent job of bringing the sense of claustrophobia into the story and making you feel the visceral discomfort that overcomes Tempe in these scenes. And the story unfurls sort of in well, not sort of, but in flashbacks as Tempe tries to recall what led her to be there in the first place. It's one of the more harrowing, and like I said, is one of the ones that truly made me feel just like, how you just go, oh, it made me uncomfortable. Come back here. It made me uncomfortable because of the just that sense of being enclosed in this cold, dark space. So I really, really enjoyed 206 Bones. Now, in book 21, it's winter in North Carolina, and a drop in crime a drop in temperatures typically means a drop in crime. So, Tempe should have a lighter work schedule, allegedly. However, her plans to spend more time with Katie, who has returned to civilian life from the army, are thwarted when Katie retrieves a box from the patio, attempt to her addressed to her mom, and in the box, I don't know what's happening. And in the box is a human eyeball. On the eyeball are GPS coordinates, which have been tattooed and lead to a Benedictine monastery where an equally macabre discovery awaits. Um, and then soon after, Tempe examines a mummified corpse in a park, and the mystery deepens. Uh, there seems to be no pattern. However, the more killings that are uncovered, the more it appears that they are linked to old cases from a younger Tempe's days. So, of course, this would be very unsettling to not only make these discoveries, but then to also discover that they seem to be linked back to you. I mean, I can't think of anything more frightening and frustrating than that. But this book was enjoyable. It did move along at a somewhat faster pace than some of her other books, and you know, it's one that I would highly recommend. Now, another one that I would recommend is Fire and Bones, which is book 23, and it is another case that deals with well, I shouldn't say another case. It's a case that deals with fire scenes, and Tempe really that's not she's not a fan of those, but she's called into Washington D.C. to analyze the victims of a deadly blaze. The devastated building is in a historic area known as Foggy Bottom. It's a neighborhood with a colorful mob past, and Tempe delves into the property's history, and she discovers the suspicious nature of past owners. This one is also one that I really remember because, again, about how it starts. It's really quite harrowing because it starts in the point of view of a young woman who is trapped in the room of one of these buildings, and you're just there with her as she comes to the horrifying realization that she's not getting out of this room alive. And I just remember being really struck by that, to know that you are going to burn alive in this place. And so, in this particular story, Tempe investigates. She finds herself working alongside a telejournalist, Ivy Doyle, and their investigation leads them back to the 30s and 40s with the Foggy Bottom Gang. And while the facts seem interesting, it's a struggle to know whether or not they are relevant. The Foggy, oh, but then a Foggy Bottom Gang member in present day, or a relative of a Foggy Bottom Gang member, uh, is shot in his home in an affluent part of the district. And then, she has to ask her, she and Ivy have to ask themselves, is this a coincidence? Is it something more targeted, something more sinister? So, as Tempe and Ivy dig deeper, an arrest is finally made, and then another fire claims another victim. And slowly, Tempe starts paying attention to her own instincts and pieces together what's really going on in Washington, D.C. This one was very interesting just because of the nods, the dips into history. And as I said, the way that it started out, the way it was told, it very much was reminiscent to me of 206 Bones, because it started out in such an intense fashion, and then sort of moved on uh, to unfold the story. So I really appreciated that. And the final book is her most recent one, which is called Evil Bones, and it deals with a peculiarity to start out with um, these small animal carcasses or bodies being dismembered and displayed, and left to be discovered in the woods and in woodland places. But then it gets bigger and it's a dog. And then uh, when they trace the chip, they find that it's a dog of a prominent attorney, and they conclude rather quickly that he didn't kill his own dog. He's not out there in the woods killing animals. So, what's the tie in? What's the connection? And of course, sadly, um, the killer can't help but to escalate and to start to dismember and disarticulate human bodies and displaying them. One of which is displayed in a gruesome fashion in I want to say a monastery or a churchyard. And then when it happens again, a woman is found disfigured and posed in a manner that mimics the animal killings. So now Tempe, working with her old buddy Skinny Slidell, which I haven't mentioned him, but he is a part of the North Carolina police contingency. And I don't know exactly when Skinny appears in the series, but he and Brennan are a thorn in each other's side. But over the course of the series, they develop a grudging friendship, and that's kind of fun to watch. So he is there helping her, or she is helping him, or they're working together to figure out who this sicko is who's running around the greater Charlotte area killing people and posing them and putting them on display. So that is the wrap up for Wayback Wednesday. I apologize for my scratchy voice. I don't know what's going on with me today, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate your being here. If you're new, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. And if you like the Wayback Wednesday feature, I've got a lot of other Wayback series that, that I've been reading since the 90s or earlier that I would love to dust off. Some of them are new, some of them are ongoing, and some of them have ended. Some might be a one off, like I believe last week I mentioned in my wrap up that I had read The Red Dragon, which is by Thomas Harris, and it was part of the Hannibal Lecter trilogy, I want to say. Or it could be other series like this you know, that have spanned 3 decades. So I have enjoyed these books. I hope you will take the time to check them out. Maybe one will touch your fancy. Even though her love life shifts throughout the series, I don't think it's necessary to read these books in order. You may want to start with one just to get grounded in who she is. But in my opinion, she changes so much over time in terms of just her bearing. I feel like in the earlier books she's a little bit harder to get along with. And I do believe that she mellows with age, and that in the some of the later books she just is a more likable character. I'll just put that out there. No offense to Kathy Reichs or her brilliant character, but so I think that if you wanted to pick up a later book and just jump right into the series, I don't think you would be too lost at all. If you're a smart reader, you'll figure it out. So that's all I've got for now. Hope you've enjoyed yourself, and I'll see you in the bookstore. Bye bye.